Hi, my name is Mackenzie. I did my research on vaccine mandates and specifically vaccine mandates in relation to healthcare workers. I chose this topic because it feels relevant to COVID and the COVID vaccine and all that's going on currently with the pandemic. And though it feels sort of like a hot topic right now, in my research realized that actually the concept of vaccine mandates is not a new one. Rather, it's been around for quite some time. Actually found in my research this case in 1897, actually, Jacobson versus the state of Massachusetts, that was actually taken to court not till 1905, but Jacobson, this party refused the smallpox vaccine after revaccination was ordered by the state, and the ruling actually affirmed that the state would be allowed to mandate the vaccination if it was accompanied only by a reasonable fine. And so in the end, Jacobson ended up having to pay a $5 fine to the state of Massachusetts. But while this is obviously a case that dates back very far, it does kind of lay the groundwork and open the door for possible vaccine mandates in the current state. And we do see this outside of the realm of COVID in the public school system in the US. The public health decisions are made at the level of the state, and so it does vary state to state, but there are typically vaccine mandates around what children have had to receive vaccine-wise if they're going to enter kindergarten in the public school system. And so, again, research has found that this is not a new concept, but the legal backing for it is sort of what I directed most of my research around, especially in light of COVID and healthcare workers, because that seems to be the first thing that comes to mind is, can employers do this? Can they put a vaccine mandate on their employees? Is that legal? Is there anything to say that they can't do that? And actually, most of my research found that it is legal, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission actually was passed in May of 2021 in light of COVID, and this essentially asserts that there is no restriction on employers placing a stipulation around their employees being vaccinated for COVID based on CDC recommendations and evidence. The COVID vaccine is the safest precautionary measure against COVID. And so the reason behind the EEOC being that employers actually have an ethical obligation and duty to provide the safest working conditions for their both employees and patrons. And so this also dips into some of the Civil Rights Act and discrimination and things like that, that of course says employers can't discriminate on employees based on sex, race, religion, pregnancy. However, employers and employees are at what is known as an at-will relationship. And so this would just suggest in the US that employers choose to hire employees and employees choose to work at a certain place or for a certain employer at their own will. And so if it's not violating the Civil Rights Act, it is legal for an employer to choose not to hire or choose to fire an employee based on that. It's an at-will relationship. And so it becomes less of an issue of an employer or anyone else saying, a nurse or any healthcare worker has to have this certain vaccine. It's more just you have to have it if you want to work at this specific place, with the understanding that you could choose to work at a different place that did not ask that of you. And that kind of speaks to what I found in my research on just the larger obligation of going into healthcare. That's also at will. No one is forced to become a healthcare worker in the United States, and there is I found a lot of research on opinions on the duty of a healthcare worker, and that in some sense, healthcare workers are held to a higher ethical standard for the sake of their patients and their health. And so the choice to pursue a career which that is asked of you is completely voluntary. And so and in some ways, inevitably a part of the job is just weighing the risk and benefit and the utility, and we're utilizing the least restrictive alternatives, and that would make the mandate itself not unethical. And so, of course, there'll be mixed opinions on this, and it's not meant to be a choice made out of coercion. It's simply a choice. And while people will disagree, and that's okay to have mixed opinions, there actually is a lot of standing criteria for a vaccine mandate.